Morning, everybody. The Simple Handicap for Tuesday, September 17th. Thank you for making me a part of your morning. What a Monday Night Football finish. Well, that was one of the better ones we've had of the year for just wild, wacky craziness. Boy, I came into the office. There was about 2 minutes left. So, okay, it's going to be a quick recap episode. I'm going to go back out, watch TV with the wife, have a relaxing Monday evening. I had the title typed out. I had the description typed out. I'm like, all right, we're ready to go. 3rd and 3 comes. I'm like, this is going to be the ball game. They're either going to run it twice or they're going to try to take a shot and get the first down, which they did. And Saquon Barkley drops the football. Okay, bad play. Not all harm done. Bad drop. You're 4th and 3 inside the Atlanta 10. You're going to go for it on 4th down. You've been picking up more than 5 yards per play all game. You got 3 yards to go. You're going to get it. Nope. They kicked a field goal. And then sure enough, the 6-point lead, the worst lead you can have late in the football game, ends up coming back and bite the Philadelphia Eagles as the Falcons, led by Kirk Cousins, go down the football field. What an absolute blunder. I'm not going to go back into the game and unravel and recap everything. I've got about a 10-minute recap video on Twitter and YouTube. But what I will say is, if you're sitting here this morning and you're an Eagles fan or you're just somebody who watched the game and you had a strong take on it, what I would say is if you felt compelled by the 3rd down run being the right decision and were adamant that the pass play was a bad decision, I posted a picture. Go back and look at the front the Atlanta Falcons defense was showing on 3rd and 3. They had 9 guys stacked up at the line of scrimmage. Nick Sirianni talked about it after the game in the post-game presser. He's like, they showed us a look that you're not going to run into. They're junking up the middle. We called a great play. And unfortunately, Saquon dropped it. I mean, if you're an Eagles fan and at the start of the game, you're going to say Saquon Barkley is going to have a 3-yard cushion on a linebacker in space. If he catches the ball, you win the game. You're taking that 99 out of 100 times, every single time. The one person who says no is a really, really big Eagles fan and he wants to win the game by 40. So that's not acceptable. Otherwise, anyone logical is taking that situation. That's exactly what you got. It was a perfect play that was drawn up against that Falcons coverage, and Saquon Barkley dropped the ball. Plain and simple. I don't have any issues with that. My issue is with the field goal decision, which gives the ball back to the Falcons at the 30 with the new kickoff rule, and then to play defense in the way they did. Just bad, unfortunate decision-making by Sirianni and the Eagles. Nevertheless, Falcons win, Falcons cover, game stays under despite several red zone trips as there's a league-wide issue with teams scoring once they get down inside the 10-yard line. We saw another week full of quarterback runs. We saw another week full of rush attempts from running backs. We saw another week that was void of quarterbacks throwing touchdown passes. It is a weird start to the NFL season, and it's going to keep going, and I'm sure it's going to be even weirder on Thursday Night Football with the New England Patriots going on the road to take on the New York Jets. How electric will the Jets' home crowd be with Aaron Rodgers coming back last year Monday Night Football against the Bills to open the season? That intro, you've seen it a million times by now in meme format. That was as electric of a Jets home environment as I have seen in many seasons. Can they replicate it on Thursday? We'll see. It's an unfortunate, probably 3+ hour drive for folks coming over the bridge. That is a brutal stadium to get to for anyway. So maybe that Thursday night traffic is going to slow things down. We'll see. But looking forward to this one. Jets, a 6.5-point favorite, was down as low as 5.5. There was Jets money that came into the market. That was after we posted a release on New York at -6, pushing this number out a little bit. The total has come in from 38.5 down to 37.5. Big thing that needs to be known about this game, Johnson, defensive end for the New York Jets, torn Achilles. He is going to miss. He's a key pass rusher. C.J. Mosley's status very much in doubt. New England has 4 of their 5 starting offensive line members on the injury report to begin the week, and so that is going to be another status that you have to watch for. Also for the New England Patriots, this is a team that has been ravaged with defensive issues, and all of a sudden there's some more bad news for them as they're going to have to go on without Jawan Bentley, whose injury is reported to be worse than it was initially stated. And so it is key guys lost at multiple levels for the Patriots defense in just 2 weeks. And you can even extend that a little further to the Barmore or the Matthew Judon, departure. Obviously, Barmore is dealing with the severe injury as well, or health concern that is keeping him out. So it is going to be very potentially a depleted Patriots offensive line, but also a defense now that is dealing with the loss of another star. Let's get to Sunday. LA Chargers on the road at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Soft 2 is the number we're seeing left to right across the screen for the Steelers as there's back and forth on Justin Herbert. I've seen reports that suggest he is going to play and be fine after x-rays were reported to be negative. But all of those reports came with the caveat that mobility is going to be limited for him in this game. Limited mobility against the Steelers defense that is playing at an extremely high level. Not an ideal situation. The total is crashing. 38.5 down as low as 35.5 currently. Lowest total of the season so far, as the anticipation is that the Chargers continue their run-heavy attack and the Steelers offense. Anemic is probably being polite and complimentary through 2 weeks so far. One note I know everybody loves to know about the Chargers. If you have yet to hear by now, there's been plenty of sound bites. Stayed out east. They're going to be not returning to LA, and they're fully on and preparing for this game out east. So just a travel scenario for the Chargers to think about. Chicago Bears on the road at the Indianapolis Colts. Colts opened a 2.5-point favorite. This is now down as low as 1.5 at Circa. We're seeing 2 flat at Buckeye, 1.5 at BetOnline, 1.5 at Pinnacle and FanDuel as well. Soft 2 at Chris for the Indianapolis Colts. Total crashing in a big way. 46.5 on the open. We're now down as low as 42.5. Colts defense has been on the field for more than 80 minutes so far through 2 weeks. That's ridiculous when you think about that. And shocking to me that the Colts have not gone consistently with their ground game. And now we get reports that Jonathan Taylor was benched in the fourth quarter for Trey Sermon. Shane Steichen said he wanted to get him more reps. What in the world is going on with Indy with that rush attack? We do know for the Colts, DeForest Buckner trending in the wrong direction for playing in this game based on very early speculations from the injury side. We know Juju Brents is going to miss this game along with several others dealing with an injury. The Indianapolis Colts defense all of a sudden really banged up, dealing with some issues to key guys. And it is a defense that has been very predictable, to put it lightly, so far through 2 weeks. It's going to be the best chance that Caleb Williams and the Bears have to move the football through 2 weeks, no question about it. They also have a chance to get Keenan Allen potentially back for this one as well, which would give Caleb Williams someone else to throw to. But in terms of pressure rate and how bad we saw that Bears offensive line on Sunday Night Football, should have a pretty good chance in this one. Houston on the road at the Minnesota Vikings. There was a Texans release from another bettor yesterday that pushed this number up. This was 4.5. And the look ahead opened lower, got down as low as 2 flat for Houston. We are now at a juiced 2.5 at Chris this morning. Seeing the same thing at BetOnline. Total from 46.5 down to 45. All week long last week, we saw numbers back and forth around key numbers. We've seen some adjustments this week through key numbers. Curious to see where this one goes. Don't really have a good read on this one, nor speculation on what might happen, but the fact that there was that release, it got pushed up and never got to 3, pretty telling about how strong Minnesota is currently being viewed in the betting market. New York Giants on the road at the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland down to a flat 6-point favorite across the board after being as high as 7 yesterday morning. Total 40.5 at open, now down as low as 38.5. Philly, New Orleans still off of the board. I'm going to be curious to see how this fully opens later on this morning. If the Eagles hold on and win that game, this is probably pushing back out towards the look-ahead number of 3.5. Does it get through to 3? No. I think it probably would have reopened 3 if they hold on and win in the manner that they did. Now, the fact that they didn't, we're probably going to see this push down even further. I wouldn't be surprised to see this open around the pick'em. For the New Orleans Saints, an interesting note that came through: the lowest ticket price available, according to a team reporter, is $162. This has been a Saints crowd that has been incredibly lackluster since Drew Brees left, and that era of the Saints was no longer being put on the field. This is probably going to be the biggest and loudest Saints crowd we have seen in quite a long time. Denver on the road at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay clinging to a 7-point spread across the board, a very soft 7. We are seeing a couple 6.5s, minus 120 at Circa, minus 120 at Pinnacle and Heritage as well. This is a number that's Been back and forth a little bit. Initial open was 7, which was up from the look ahead of 5. This got to 6.5. Then it got back to 7. And now we're kind of in between. So there is already, as I mentioned, around these key numbers, it's been happening all season long, but we're seeing it a lot in this game too, with that back and forth lingering around the 6.5 and 7. You think about the Tampa Bay injuries. Vita Vea, unlikely to play in this game after getting hurt on Sunday. We also have Cansey on the defensive line. He is likely to miss this game as well. Then you have all the injuries piling up in the defensive backfield. So far, the Denver Broncos this season went in with a rookie quarterback to play Mike McDonald and the Seahawks. And then you have last week where they played the Pittsburgh Steelers. 2 brutal defensive matchups to begin the year. Now they get a bit of a reprieve, in a way, facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now the caveat to this is Todd Bowles against a rookie quarterback. It's a spot where he's excelled and just dominated rookie QBs his entire career and tenure as a defensive coordinator. And we saw in week 1, Jaden Daniels really had fits. Now, against the Pittsburgh Steelers, I will say the Broncos did move the football. There was an unfortunate end zone interception that kept points off of the board. But that is a much better Steelers defense than what they're going to face here in the Buccaneers. So we'll see what happens with this number. But I can certainly understand the case for backing Tampa Bay. I can certainly understand the case for backing Denver once this gets to 7. Green Bay Packers on the road at the Tennessee Titans. This number has been slowly creeping up as the week goes on. Open 1.5, got to 2, we got to 2.5. We're seeing 3 minus 102 at Chris, 3 even money at Buckeye and Bet Online. A few 2.5s lingering at regulated books across the country too. 39.5 was the total, down to 36.5. I'd be shocked if Jordan Love plays in this game. There's been no indication that he is going to be ready to go for this game. Next week has always been the early indication once the injury stuff settled last week. And so I do believe that this is going to be a Malik Willis revenge game back into Tennessee. He's already been asked about it at pressers too. So that's how I see this lining up. The total is reflecting that with how run-heavy the Packers went. This starts to feel kind of like a tough situation. You get the new QB burst. You get the game plan you don't see coming with 53 rush attempts. What's part 2 for that? LaFleur is awesome. His play calling is phenomenal. What do the Packers come up with here as an encore for what they put forth on the field against the Colts, a game which they just snuck out of? Carolina on the road at the Las Vegas Raiders. Sigh of relief, potentially, for everybody on the Carolina Panthers season-long over 5.5 win total sweat. As Bryce Young is benched, in comes Andy Dalton to potentially save the day. I mean, what do we get from Dalton? He didn't practice all preseason. He was certainly smiling in the locker room and grinning at the opportunity. Maybe the quarterback revival for Dave Canales was not Bryce Young, but he's going for number 3 after reviving Geno Smith, after reviving Baker Mayfield. Andy Dalton certainly fits in that class of guys and talent. Oh, boy. I've taken a lot of heat for this one. I'm just hoping we get something positive from the Panthers to calm things down. Not hearing a lot about the Vikings, not hearing a lot about the Ravens' struggles, not hearing a lot about the Seattle Seahawks and Mike McDonald and some of these other things. I'm taking a lot of heat, starting to feel it for the Carolina Panthers. So we get Andy Dalton on the field. The market's saying everything you need to know. This was Raiders 7. It is now Raiders 5.5-point favorites across the board, and the total went up, was down to 38. We are now up to 40.5. The market says we get Dalton. Panthers have a better chance to win. Panthers have a better chance to score. That's how it's being read in the market so far. Miami on the road at the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle down to a 5-point favorite across the screen. Total from 47.5 on the look ahead, which obviously accounted for Jordan Love, Tua playing in this game. Tua is obviously not playing in this game. The anticipation is week 8 at the earliest based on early reports. As you're looking at this, 47.5 is now 41. It opened 41.5. There has been under money. There has also been Dolphins money with Skylar Thompson starting in this game, something that I agreed with. If you watched the look ahead stream on the YouTube channel, or you listen to the podcast here on Apple or Spotify, you would have heard I was like, Seattle at 6.5 when we were talking was higher than what the Seahawks closed against the Broncos. And you have a much better Dolphins team than Broncos team. It's Skylar Thompson, who's played in a playoff game with this same Dolphins team. I mean, you can't, those two lines being equal didn't make sense to me. And it was Miami money into the market consistently. I'll be curious to know where this total goes with the Seahawks offense looking drastically different against a very good New England Patriots secondary and how those plays were called by Ryan Grubb. Detroit on the road at the Arizona Cardinals. 4.5 was the look-ahead line. 3 was the opener. All the threes were taken out. We are now down to 2.5, an expensive 2.5 across the board for the Detroit Lions, laying that number on the road. Total 51.5 on the open. Got down to 51. We released over 51. It is now up to 52.5. This is going to be a fun game to talk about as the week goes on. Injury report, Amon-Ra St. Brown, waiting to hear his status. Obviously key to this Lions offense, but this is going to be a Lions game plan that is predicated by the offensive line and the run game. We'll wait to see the status of St. Brown as the week progresses. Baltimore on the road at the Dallas Cowboys. Ravens laying 1 left to right across the screen. It's been over money. Coming in one way, 47.5, out to a high of 49.5 this morning at Circa. San Francisco on the road at the Los Angeles Rams. This is a major move so far. 4.5 initially on the look ahead. We're out to 49ers laying 7.5 across the screen. Lots of news coming out on this one. Steve Avila on IR. Jonah Jackson expected to miss. Joe Noteboom still on IR. We also have Cooper Kupp expected to miss several weeks. So the LA Rams are going to get Jackson back at left tackle off of the suspension, but it is only going to be Jackson, Dotson, and Havenstein on the offensive line, with all those other starters expected to miss. So you got 2 of the 5 expected starters for the Rams set to go in this game on the offensive line. You will not obviously have Puka Nacua. You will not have Cooper Kupp out there for the Rams. So you're down wide receiver number 1, wide receiver number 2, and you're down 3 offensive linemen. We saw the Rams against the Cardinals get 0 ground game whatsoever. They face a 49ers defensive front, which has looked a lot better under Nick Sorensen, a lot better energy, a lot more aggression from those front 4 when they're asked to just rush as 4. However, there's some negatives here for the 49ers defense and for the 49ers offense. Defensively, Nick Bosa, we don't know what his status is going to be. It's trending like he's unlikely to play with a lower body injury in this game. Deebo Samuel is going to miss this game as well. So you lose a key piece from the offense. You lose a key piece potentially from the defense. That gives the Rams a little bit of an out. It's 2-0 it's 0-2 for the Rams at home against the 1-1 Niners in the division, but this game being a division game counts 4 extra. This is a massive game for the Rams at home, dealing with a lot of injuries, but is this going to be another Stafford and McVay classic, getting a lot of points at home? Kansas City on the road at the Atlanta Falcons, not fully open yet. We were looking at 4.5 initially on the look-ahead line. Bad news for Kansas City, as Isaiah Pacheco is in fact going to miss 6 to 8 weeks, potentially longer. So that is now 2 key offensive pieces for the Chiefs in Brown and Pacheco down that are going to miss extended time. A big blow to that offense and that outlook and how this team was shaping up. They also have not a injury-driven concern, but a back-and-forth talent-driven concern about who is going to play at left tackle as they're trying to figure out that position heading into this week against the Atlanta Falcons. Monday doubleheader, Jacksonville on the road at the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo down to a 5-point favorite. This was as high as 6.5. Market was simply looking at this and saying, Buffalo hosted the Cardinals in week 1. That game closed 6.5. Here they're hosting the Jacksonville Jags. How can that be 6.5 again? And there was certainly disagreement with that, as this number has come down now to a flat 5. And similar to Miami and Seattle, a number that, in my opinion, just makes a little bit more sense. The total has continued to come down, 47.5 down to 45.5 this morning, left to right across the screen. And then it is Washington on the road at the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals money all the way since the open, 7 to 7.5, 7.5 to 8, and we are seeing 8 from left to right across the screen. Total 47.5 up to 48.5. That'll do it for me today. more releases possible over at raspicks.com/NFL if you're interested in those coming out likely later today. If you watch this on YouTube, the subscribe button is down below. Would appreciate the subscribe along with a thumbs up. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, thank you again for coming back to the podcast feed. If you have a second before you go, leave a rating if you're enjoying the content. Live stream tomorrow at 9 a.m., but we'll be back talking to you before that with another episode of the podcast. Have a great Tuesday, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow.